Okay, this should be the On Gamers Daily Breakdown. This time I've got three guests. It's not just two this time. It's a blockbuster show for everyone who stayed up to watch the NA games. So my first guest, I don't know actually if his camera's on right now, but it will be IWillDominate, jungler of Curse, who almost got to Worlds. He was one game away, but was denied. How you doing, Dominate?
Doing pretty good. A little bit less good now the Cloud9 lost, but it's all right.
Okay, so second guest we have is Innerflame, and he's the manager of SK Prime. How's it going?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Just yeah, like kind of like dominate. Just a bit sad that Cloud9 lost. Wanted
Okay,
the West to win.
so a lot of Western homers here.
Yeah.
So on that topic, last guest, Mark Thompson here. Now I'll give this intro because he doesn't work for anyone at the moment, so I can't give like accolades or something. But since I come on the show, and basically I'm only on the show because I'm like known, but I don't know anything about the game. He's like going to be like my mirror opposite here, and we're going to like fusion dance into someone who like is known and knows about the game because he watches tons of VODs. He has quite good knowledge about the game. So how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Okay, right. So obviously today we're going to talk about the Cloud9 versus Samsung Blue series, and we got four games just like we did yesterday. So we'll just go game by game. So I always like to start initially and get an update on like what did people actually think coming into the series? Like what was their expectation? Like if I start with you, Dominic, did you actually think that Cloud9 could win? Were you one of those people who thought like this can happen?
Um, I don't know. It feels bad to say. I didn't actually think that they were gonna win. Like Saint said that it was like 70-30, and that's what he thought. But I couldn't see Cloud9 ever winning. I could see them winning games, but like I just for some reason couldn't see them winning the series. I thought Samsung Blue would just definitely win.
So
Yeah.
you had it as like what, 3-1, 3-0, what?
I had it like 3-1, 3-1, maybe 3-2 if Cloud9 played well, but I just couldn't see Cloud9 winning three games.
In a flame, did you believe? Did you believe in the Western hope?
Um, I actually tweeted that Cloud9 would win 3-2, but only because they're good on
Okay.
blue side. No. I said it after the first game because
Okay. You're going
Cloud9 like win.
advanced with this prediction then.
Well. Like Cloud9 win a lot on the blue side, right? And Samsung let them have a game on purple. So I
Okay.
actually thought they could win the series. I said 3-2 after the first game.
Okay. Mark, what did you think? What was your kind of feeling coming into the series?
No, Samsung Blue 3-1. That was my prediction. I mean, I was kind of hopeful that Cloud9 could take a cut game or two, or like maybe they would make dot a tilt and feed and maybe get three games, but like chances were so slim, it just wasn't gonna happen. It was just gonna be blue.
Okay. Fair enough. Right. We'll start with the actual game then.
What
So
about you,
game one.
Thorin?
Oh, what did I think? I think I
Yeah.
said on Summon Insight it would be. I think I said 3-1 for blue.
Okay.
Let me think.
You
I
didn't
think so.
believe in
I
Cloud9?
didn't. I didn't think. I thought it was impossible for Cloud9 to win actually.
Yeah.
Because think about this series here, without going too in depth, because we're going to go into it now. Even if Cloud9 had won that game there, what a Herculean effort it would have taken to win that game there. Like the first game's the only one they won really convincingly, right? And that's because like the fucking support fed like 4 times in like 10 minutes or something. That's not going to happen 3 times in a row, you know. So as a result, yeah, okay, you win that one, fair enough. Later on, you almost win this super. Well, they didn't even necessarily win. They almost won the really hard game. You then still have to win another whole game to win the series. That's my problem with it. You know, like I can give you credit that you could win two. You could from seeing the series, you definitely could have won 2 games. But to win 3 out of the 5, that's the thing. I think blue would prevail in the end. So yeah, I didn't think it was possible in that sense. I mean, obviously it was. It's like a 10% chance or something, but I didn't think it would happen. So if we go into game one, then. So like I say, let's just start there then. It's hard to even look at game one and go like, oh, how did the comps affect it and stuff? Because you have to immediately talk about the fact that like Hart was caught like 4 times in a row all over the map. So anyone who wants to jump in here, what did you think of that? Like, what can we say about that? Just
I
dying
mean,
over and over and over.
I thought they kind of made an error in the draft. Like, wasn't it? What was the first pick? Was it Thresh? And that
Yeah.
left what did it do? It left like Rumble and Rise open, right? And I think Samsung
No, I think it was
Blue
Kha'Zix and Janna.
was it Kha'Zix Janna first? Oh, okay.
I
And
think so.
then I just think like Samsung Blue were so set on having this poke comp, which they used in OGN once, that they just picked those picks no matter what. I just think they were so set on having this poke comp that.
Was it them that actually played that comp, or wasn't it? I thought it was White that played that comp.
Which champions
Are
are
you
we
sure?
talking about here?
Are you sure it was White?
Jason Id.
Wasn't
Yeah,
the
it was
AP Nidalee top? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
That was game one, yeah. Acorn
That was
played
game one.
Was
Nidalee.
that Acorn?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but in OGN, who was it? Was it White?
I think
or
it was
Blue?
Save, right?
Was it
Save who plays Nidalee, yeah.
Yes, Save. So it was
He like
two.
pioneered the AP build, I think.
So I guess they got it off that. I don't remember like exactly. It was a little while back, but I just think they were so set on having that kind of comp that they messed up the draft a little bit. They let Cloud9 have like all of their comfort picks.
Okay,
Well,
so on the
wasn't
topic
even-
of the draft then, yeah, jump in, Mark.
Thanks. It wasn't even. I don't think that they drafted the pick or the poke comp properly. Like they had Tristan on it. If they had just taken like Corky or something with Jason Italy, they would have been able to first get away from the gank bottom lane when Meteos came down, and secondly, they would have been able to stall out, clear the minion waves for much longer. They wouldn't have had this average blade Tristana doing nothing against 4-0 Lucian for like the entire game. Like I think that really lost them the game, just picking Tristana there into Lucian and just not being able to lane like at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should have just lane swapped. Like, I think that it's fine. Like, they can pick the Tristana there, but like, you can't lane the Tristana Thresh into the Morgana Lucian. You have to just lane swap. And Nidalee actually pretty good in lane swap because she can just like
Yeah.
farm with spears. She's super long range, like get away from stuff easily. Can kind of
Yeah,
like
it was-
greet CS. So
I'm really surprised they didn't actually.
yeah, I think if they lane swapped, it would have been fine. And like, I think the poke comp was actually like C9 didn't have super hard engage. Like they pretty much had to
No.
rely on hitting a Syndra stun, like Rise running in. If they got far ahead, I think they could have won that game. But just like with the way the game was going, like a poke comp's just never gonna look good from behind.
So, okay, without going too hard on this, because obviously when the support dies 11 times and 4 are within the first 10 minutes, it kind of fucks the whole laning phase. But I like a bronze level analysis that people always make during the Worlds is people get really mad if you pick Lucian against Tristana. They're like, oh, it's an auto lose, what are you doing? Tristana's going to win. Like, what did you actually think of the bot lane picks? Anyone? Just started off.
You mean just for game one?
Yeah.
For the whole series?
It was Tristana Thresh for Blue in game one, and then it was Lucian Morgana for Cloud9.
Yeah, I really like Lucian. Like, I don't know why teams are snubbing him so much. I know his range isn't very good, but he's such a bully. He can stop people in 2v1s from farming, and he can win almost every 2v2 matchup in lane. His ult clears waves, really low cooldown, super mobile, very front-loaded bursty, which is great with characters like Kha'Zix for resets. Like, there's so many good things going on with his kit, and his damage is so high through like so much of the game that I think he's a very, very valuable and like kind of underrated pick on the world stage. I don't know why.
Sneaky's like really good on Lucian as well. Like he's always like harassing with the Q through the minions, right? And he hit Deft a lot, just like harassing through the minions with the Q. It's really
Okay,
sick.
so in game one, was there anything aside from like obviously a lot of it was decided before the mid game even really arrived? Was there any like key play that stands out or key rotation or something that like could Blue actually have won that game? It seemed like there was a period where even though they were like had half as many kills, they got a little run going and they were like getting some kills on their side of the jungle, but
Just because high kept
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
caught.
I got caught twice. Yeah.
like was that just always a clear win for C9 once they had that lead, do you think?
Well, like right at the start, obviously they got the level 1 kill, right? But then Bulls had a ward in the bush, and Spirit was like waiting in the bush with Acorn for like ages, and that obviously let Meteos know that there's like no threat of a counter gank, so they just died bot and got double kill, and then they got Drake after that, so it was like it kind of snowballed from there. I mean, yeah, High got caught twice or so, but like
They were already
Yeah,
like
they-
10k up. Didn't matter that much.
Like 50 CS up bot lane in like the first 10 minutes. So
So going into game two, before we even get into the pick ban, like if you'd asked me which game that the Samsung Blue would lose, I would tell you Blue actually. I made this point in Summoning Insight the other day that actually someone like Blue hasn't played in actual competition. They've played in scrims. They haven't played like foreign teams before. They've only played Koreans. And I've noticed Koreans in esports in general are more of like a feel out process. Like the first game, they're trying to see like what you're going to do and how you're going to play. And they don't necessarily like just go all out. So if they're going to lose, they're probably going to lose the first one. And then the thing, because they play so many best of fives, they're usually really good at like adapting as the series goes on. So Cloud9 wins game 1. We go to game 2. What did anyone think of the draft phase here? Dominate, what did you think of this time? Spirit got Kha'Zix and we had Meteos on his Elise. Like,
I
Zed
thought it
for
was
High.
like
Was this a good draft?
I thought it was better for Cloud9 just based on what they like to play. Like Hyde's favorite champion Zed, like he's willing to first pick it. Balls on Rumble that game, right? Or was he on Maokai?
No, it was
No, he's
Maokai.
Maokai.
Wow.
All right, so he was on Maokai that game. So I guess it's just like solid top laner. And then you've got like Meteos on Elise. That's his like token pick. So I thought that those two picks, like the Elise Zed, would do well, but the Elise Zed actually ended up being like the weakest part of the game, which was surprising to me.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I want to bring up in this game, because this is okay. Buckle in, everyone. This is going to be a recurring trend here, okay? Where High will be playing like an all-in sort of previously OP champion, and then the opponent will be like a really amazing mid laner who gets like a signature champion, and it's like, okay, let's start the highlight clip. Like in this game here, High was on his Zed, and then Dade was on Twisted Fate. This is one of these games where I don't think people like High have ever played someone who's like that good on Twisted Fate. That's the problem I think High has in these scenarios. He plays people on Kassadin or Kha'Zix when it used to be mid, etc., or Twisted Fate now, and a Yasuo, and he's played people who are good on it, but he's never played like the best person ever on that champion. What did you think of this mid lane matchup?
I think he just like wasn't experienced because like no one in NA is gonna pick TF at Zed. Like no, like that's like disrespect in NA. That's how it's like pretty much.
And Morgana.
Seen. Yeah, like you don't really see like, oh, a Zed like an assassin. Let's pick like some like the squishiest, like weakest early game like champion and just like put it in there and just lane it straight up. So I think that he just like didn't really have like the right mindset. Like, I think he thought he needed to shit on it like harder than he did in reality. And like they got like the early kill, and I thought that he was gonna snowball the lane off that, but then they just like overextended a couple times and he died, and then he ended up like 1-8. So yeah. That's
I
how it
mean,
goes.
it's
Yeah,
hard
definitely.
not. Yeah, sure. Like, it's hard not to have the lane shoved towards you, but like he kind of let him do it too much. So every time he wanted to kill Dade, he would have to go all in past the creeps, you know. And if you don't get that kill, then you lose all the creeps on the turret, and it just kept on happening over and over again. I think they got it the first time, right? Like the first gank was successful, and then after that, like it just didn't work. You also like, if you don't pick a yellow card after he ults you quick enough, then he can just one-shot you as well. But I don't know. By the time he was all-inning, he was like already too far behind because the lane was always shoved to his turret.
Was this just a bad pick? Like, obviously, in hindsight, you could say it went badly, but could the pick have worked for High specifically with his skill set, Mark?
Yeah, I think that was the best possible outcome. Like I don't know what else I would play against that. Like that's probably exactly what they were hoping Dade would pick. Like I think that was the perfect circumstance, and Dade just outplayed them the whole game.
Let me play devil's advocate for you guys, because actually I can see why you would look at these champions for C9 and go, oh, there's a good pick, so this could go well. Explain to me. Maybe it's the comp, I don't know, but if I look at these picks for Blue, okay, they have Acorn on Rumble, which he's like really famous for historically. Kha'Zix is like Spirit's probably his best champion. Dade on TF is like has some of the best games ever, and then Deft on Twitch is really good. Like he's one of those players who like his Twitch is like a level above the Western Twitch. Why was this not like a super sick draft for the Blue guys? Anyone?
I think it was.
I think it was a good draft for them. It just this TF pick I didn't like at all, and it ended up being like what won the game because they could use the TF to stop the split push so effectively. But I didn't see how they were going to get it through laning phase, and then they just did. They just killed everyone. They outplayed the Black Shields, and that was it.
Okay, so if we go into game 3 now. Now in game 3, Dade went back to the Jace. He pulled it out again. High went on Syndra. What did you think of the draft here, Innerflame?
Game 3?
Yeah.
What else was there? Oh yeah, there was Graves Janna, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So I believe, like Double F said, the Graves is like a winning matchup on the Corki.
I mean, early on it was going well, right?
Yeah, but obviously they kind of got outpoked that game. So I don't know. I think when you get behind against Siege, like not 9 times, like 8 times out of 10, you're probably gonna lose. And they got behind, and I think they were like pretty much always behind in that game. So there really wasn't really any coming back. Only bot lane was winning. They just outplayed them.
And it was like that horrific level 1 from Cloud9, or like they had 2 deaths level 1, which skews the game pretty hard. Like I think
Dominate,
the bot lane would have gone even worse.
In terms of the jungler matchup, okay, I made a comment on Twitter where once Spirit was up something like 3-0-6, I was like, this is like really bad actually that the kills went on him. And people all said like, yeah, but it's not a late scaling champion. That doesn't matter. That's where you want the kills to go. What I meant was if you know what someone like Spirit is going to be like on Lee Sin, that means it's like gank city now. Like he's just going to go crazy and he's just going to take all your jungle if he doesn't gank. Like obviously Meteos can be good on Kha'Zix. What did you think of this jungle matchup in this game?
Well, it's like really volatile. If the Kha'Zix ever gets ahead, the Kha'Zix is just going to stay ahead for the whole game and just be way more effective. But if the Lee Sin gets like super far ahead early, he can just punish the Kha'Zix, and the Kha'Zix is going to be afraid to gank because if they run into like a gank and you get counter ganked on Kha'Zix and your leap is down, you just get one shot by the Lee Sin. So I think that like Spirit needed to be that far ahead for it to be as punishing as it was.
Another factor I wanted to ask about, so maybe I can start with you on this, Mark, is, okay, in this series, probably the quietest guy on blue was Acorn, because all he did was just what a tank is supposed to do. But every time he was playing Maokai, he was, like, unreal. Like, he would just zone everyone in the whole fight. And, like, you'd see a fight start, C9 would be starting to win it, and then he'd just come in, and then, like, that's how they'd win. Like, what did you think of his play in this game?
I think he was really crucial. I mean, he had great teleports that set up a lot of great team fights. This Maokai... He seemed a lot more comfortable on Maokai than Balls did. When Balls played Maokai, I was always kind of like questioning what he was doing, and he just looked like he wasn't 100% sure of himself always. Where when he plays Rumble, I can tell like he knows what to do, or he at least knows what he's trying to do at all times. I saw the eyebrow raise, and I think Acorn just looked a lot more comfortable on that champion, and I think that champion is really, really good when played really well. I think Acorn played it really well, and Balls played it all right.
So everyone, like, it's like, one of the downsides, okay, of doing like analysis type desk things is that people don't have that much time to say their part, okay? So what tends to happen is if you get like a narrative that's like, especially if it has some truth to it, people just like hammer it and they keep going back to it to like build the storyline up. So people go ham on that analysis desk about Balls on Rumble. And obviously he has won a majority of the games even in this tournament with it. Is it as simple as when you play C9? Like, is that a must ban every time you play C9? Can you let it through for certain reasons? What do you think, anyone?
In NA it is. Like, when he was playing it in NA, like, every single game, when you knew he was going to first pick it and play into any matchup, you just ban it every game. Because even the games where you'd shut him down, like, he'd have 30 CS, the enemy top laner would have, like, 70 or something, and they'd get into that first dragon fight, he'd just land a monster roll and just, like, win his team the game there. So you just, like, wouldn't take that risk in NA. But I guess foreign teams are more comfortable dealing with it. But, I mean, even in Game 4, like, it looked like it was like on the verge of winning them the game in a couple of the fights. So yeah, I think it's a pretty solid ban versus C9.
Is there something he does
different? The game.
Yeah. Is there something he does differently from other ones? Because actually Acorn has a really good Rumble as well. You just don't see it that often. Like somehow his like ult landing seems like a bit different from other players who play the champion, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think his like the amount of time it takes him to find the really good ult is so much quicker than everyone else. Like, he'll know exactly how to position it, whether it's like through the team in like a line, or the one that he did versus Naj and Shield that won them the game in group stage, where he just did it horizontally across the whole backline and just like zoned the backline, but at the same time did like half of the AD carry's life. Like, those ults that he finds them a lot quicker than other Rumble players. Like, a lot of Rumble players have a tough time like trying to set up the angle that they want the ult, but he'll just do it instantly. Like, he knows exactly where to drop it.
So a bit like when C9 was winning the early game quite hard in game 1, and I was like, there's not that much you can say about beyond that. The problem with this game, I'm going to ask you about now, Innerflame, is, okay, once Blue got like Spirit super far ahead, and then Dade's getting kills, and then Deft for a while didn't have any kills, but he was doing ridiculous damage. It was like, I didn't know how it is possible C9 could win the game anymore, because they had like none of their own jungle, they had no wards up, they had less towers. Like, was there even a way to get back in the game? Like, could they just force 5v5s and maybe win? What did you think at that point?
I mean, if Syndra lands a stun on 5 people, yeah, there's always a chance, and then a good Rumble ult. But like the chance of that happening when you've got no control of your own jungle is like 0. So there pretty much was no chance to come back.
Because it feels like, actually, maybe someone else can jump in on this. Feels like that was actually a key component of this series as well. Was like, C9, because, okay, think of it this way. Blue actually don't have like tons of super duper mega players. If you look at almost every game they win, it's because Dade and Deft get all the kills. That's like the way their team's set up to work. And so, yeah, they are super sick in the really late game fights. But in the mid game, you can definitely win some fights off them. And that's where C9's usually at their best. Find those fights. If you're not, then rotate, etc. It seemed like every game Blue got the vision advantage. C9's power just like waned away and they just couldn't get back in the games. Does anyone have any thoughts on this or a counter to that?
No, I think that was 100% right. Like every game that Meteos was sort of suppressed because Spirit got early kills or successful ganks or whatever, they managed to get jungle control and it really just set the pace for the whole game. Like in the few games that C9 kept close or even in the game they won, it was because Meteos got a little bit ahead and he's really good at applying that pressure. He's really good at controlling the map, and that's something that Cloud9 is actually quite good at, especially in the early and mid game. And in the last couple of games, he didn't show up like he did in the first 2 games. So
in the West, we almost never see Jace mid, at least in competition. We've seen it a few times here. Like, actually, I think EDG played it once in Group A as well as like a weird pick. What does anyone think of the way the Asians use Jace mid? Like, what are they doing with it? What's good? What's bad?
I personally like it. Like, I think it's strong. It's the range advantage is really good, and then it kind of forces the team to itemize differently. So like if you're against like a Jace mid and an Italy top, you don't really know if you're gonna build like armor or MR. So it makes it a lot harder for the enemy team to itemize, and it's something that pretty much should have no losing matchups mid. Like I can't think of anything off the top of my head that just beats a mid. So I think it's like a pretty safe pick. You can blind pick it and play it into anything, and you can also force the team to itemize like differently than normal with a mid champion.
One of the few Samsung players I would actually highlight here, I want to ask you all about. The only one I can see in their team, actually, who, even though they won the series, actually had a bit of a crap series, was actually Hart. Even in the games they won, it's like for example, in this game, he was playing Braum. It's not like he actually almost never landed a really good ult. He didn't really zone that well. He was just kind of okay, and he just kind of hung around Deft, and then Deft gets kills, and then Dade gets kills, and Acorn zones, and Spirit's ahead on jungle. Like, what did anyone think of Hart in this series overall?
I think he
in the
was
series
definitely the
overall,
weak link.
yeah, he was weaker than everyone else. I mean, in that game in particular, like when they had that 2-on-2 fight in bot lane, and he just missed the ult, that pretty much cost the whole fight, and then they died. So that also like kind of let Sneaky get ahead. I think Sneaky actually played okay considering the circumstances. I just think the rest of his team were too far behind.
Okay, that's a good counterpoint. Actually, if we're going to pick someone for Cloud9 who played well in nearly all the games, it's probably Sneaky, right? I mean, in general, the games where they lost, it was never actually him playing like a bad game. Usually it was like he was in a position where he couldn't win, and then the games they were doing well in, he was the main reason, right? What does anyone think?
I think he played well, but I think the Graves pick in Game 3, I just like didn't understand why he'd pick Graves there over like Trist, for example. Like Tristana's still up.
Can you come up with a logic for what he was maybe trying to accomplish? Like was there something in the comp that would have been better with Graves there than if you'd picked Tristana?
Well, I don't think it's very good into Braum either. I don't know.
Well, they had Syndra and Kha'Zix for resets. Like they had a ton of front-loaded burst. So I mean, like I see a little bit of something there. They had Rumble Ult and Smoke Screen, are good for zoning. They're really good in mid-game team fights. But I mean, past the early and mid-game, and even then, kind of in the mid-game, he's kind of weak. And in the late game, he's like useless. Like he can't get in, he can't fight, he can't poke, he can't trade, he can't do anything. All he can do is all in. And if your team's behind, then you're just going to lose the all in. So I don't think it was a good pick.
Oh, another player I should probably highlight. Okay, yeah, go on, Innerflame. I'll say my point.
Do you think he could have picked like Thresh instead there? Like it might have worked better with the Syndra, and if they were going for picks and dives. Oh, was it? Ah, yeah, okay, yeah.
So.
No, was it banned in like every game? It's kind of weird because
4 and 5.
Yeah.
3 and 4 rather.
last 2 games, but like Dominate, how much do Cloud9 actually play Thresh?
They played it more in the earlier part of the season. Now it seems like they favor they'd rather play into the Thresh and just get to play Morgana against it, because that's pretty much the only matchup that I see Lemon liking Morgana into right now. Maybe also he'd play it into Braum, but he likes it into Thresh like 100% because he can just always like shield the hook. So um, I think that they'd rather just like let another team take Thresh from them and then just play Morgana into it rather than play it themselves, even though Lemon has like a fine Thresh.
So since we're talking about the support picks, that's actually someone else I did want to mention before we move on from game 3, which is that Lemonation's Janna here was a bit like I never noticed him in the game, you know. Like I never saw him set off like a really good ultimate, or he had like he maybe had like 1 or 2 times he did like a knock up that let them get away, but in the team fights it seemed like he wasn't able to have really any impact. What did anyone think? I mean, isn't Janna like the Dominate? Isn't Janna the one that Lemonation is super famous for? Where like he got to the top of solo queue back in the day in like 2013 when he was just playing Janna only or something.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. His Jan is good. I don't know. He had a really weird skill build this game. Like I think the casters were saying that he was maxing W, which I didn't really understand because like versus a poke comp, Janna's already not that great because you don't have any sustain. So if you get poked like once, you just have to like go heal or something. And like your shield is pretty much the only way to mitigate that poke. So I didn't really understand why he would max W, if that's correct. Like I'm just going off what was said. I didn't actually get to see, but I think that like maxing shield would have been way better for lane and outside of lane too. So I didn't really understand that.
I realize no one here is like a support main, but in this game, Lemonation ended up with Frost Queen's claim completed, and then he had Aegis. So if this was Crepo, this is why you're immediately supposed to go like, where was the Mikhails? Like you could have kept Sneaky alive in that fight, you know, like you have to do that approach. Was going Aegis the right approach here? Was Frost Queen's claim right for picks? What do you think of that build? Anyone?
It's like, what are you gonna build then? Like, it's hard to itemize against that team. That's what I was kind of talking about, like against like the Jace Corki, because I mean Aegis isn't good against Jace at all. It's like completely useless against Jace, but it's a way to mitigate like the Maokai and Corki damage. And Mikhails isn't super good against that team because all they really have is like the Braum Q that you can cleanse, and then like Maokai W, which is not that useful to cleanse either. Like it's just really hard to itemize when you're against a poke comp like that, or against like a Jace like that.
Before we go into game, oh yeah, go on.
I guess the logic was like the health regen aura can maybe like help you a bit, because obviously like Dominate said, there's no sustain there, but like yeah, I just don't think it's enough.
Okay, before we go into the game 4, I just have a question for Mark and Dominate now, because it's an NA based question. There's a funny sort of stereotype about Cloud9, which is that because if you look at their team, okay, there's teams that have more skill in NA, there's teams that like are really good front runners in NA, and Cloud9's obviously famously very sick at comebacks. There's like a weird stereotype that Cloud9, like, you know, their lanes don't win and then they win by out rotating. They do win by like mid game stuff, but actually if you ever look at the stats, almost every season they're like the majority of the games they're getting ahead, and at 10 minutes they're ahead, at 20 minutes they're ahead. So in general, Meteos actually doesn't play from behind much in his whole career. The majority of the time, he's got kills or he's gotten his laner kills, and they're ahead in that sense. In general, what do you think? How does Meteos play from behind? Because obviously this time he's playing against someone who's going to be very good if he's ahead of you. How do you think Dominate and Mark? Was this par for how he is in NA when he's behind?
Yeah, I'd say that's just pretty much his style. Like he's more of a safe player than an aggressive player, and obviously like when he's like the best like safe player you can be. That's like how I view Meteos. Like he's super solid. He'll always like make like the right safe move, but he's not gonna like do something that's kind of risky, which is sometimes what you need when you're behind. You just need to kind of just go full retard. It's like, all right,
so
I'm just gonna jump in and get something started.
Give me like give me some like more context on that, okay? Because on one hand, right, when you say that, people might think of the extreme. Okay, so the extreme actually is someone like Shook, where if he's behind, he just goes on full bore tilt and just like tries to like solo queue, make more plays on Lee Sin, and like he dies a million times. Okay, so how much like aggression and like when you say safe, does Meteos just protect his laner? Does he just farm what?
it's just like there's times where like you're not gonna have like there's gonna be like a potential for the play to fail. Like there's gonna be a chance where you don't have the deep wards in because you're not winning. You can't really walk into their jungle. You don't know where the other jungler is gonna be necessarily, and you just kind of have to go off feel. It's like, all right, I don't think that he would be just like camping the brush bottom right now, so I'm just gonna like jump in and try to get something started, which is kind of like what I think you need to do when you're behind. And I don't think Meteos is gonna do that much. Like I think he'd rather just like farm out the game and wait for the enemy team to make a mistake than kind of like force the issue.
What did you think, Mark, of Meteos in the series overall? Like how he matched up? Obviously, because he had to play from behind a bunch of games. Did it work out okay? Was he under par for where you expected him to be?
I think he underperformed a little bit. I don't know if it's because he doesn't have as much experience playing from behind, or if he's just less comfortable, or maybe, like Dom said, he's just playing too safe. But I think in the games that he was behind, he really didn't affect the map enough, and Spirit was affecting the map a lot. And I think there were opportunities where he could have done a little bit more. And like in game 4, he was like level 3 at 7 minutes or something, like something stupid. Like there's no reason for that. Even if you're just killing your jungle camps, you should be doing better than that. So I think he was too afraid or too reserved in his style, and I think he just needed to like make something happen or try and gank or even just kill the creeps. Like if you have to just kill the creeps, that's fine, but you gotta try and keep up or get back in the game somehow.
I mean, just like the way I see it, like Meteos is just not the player that's down to go 0-10 in a game. Like if they're losing, he'd rather just like play it safe, try to like wait for like kind of like in game 4 where there was that massive like throw and then they like have a chance to win. He'd rather wait for that moment and capitalize than just like force the issue. Kind of like how Hart did in game 1 and he just like went like 2-11. He's just like dead the entire game. Like I don't think Meteos will ever do that. Like he's never just gonna be dead the entire game. He's gonna wait. He's gonna like try to do something that seems logical. Wait for the enemy team to make a mistake because they will make a mistake eventually. But it's just
doesn't he have to do that because High's gonna go 0-11?
I mean, they could both go 0-11. Like,
okay,
that's teamwork
I like
right there.
It's true. Yeah.
No,
that's why he has to
0-11
offset that,
sometimes.
doesn't he? Yeah, exactly right, Dominic.
He's gotta clear the waves.
Today I learned Meteos, Froggen of Jungle. Okay, interesting. So let's transition from that point because this is a perfect entry point to Game 4. When we talk about the picks in Game 4, Dominic, I have to start with you because when I just outlined there some of Meteos' problems and his strengths as well, as soon as this draft happened, two things immediately came to my mind. Like, one, Meteos is on Lee Sin, and actually, considering what a good jungler he is, he's not particularly known for like some godly Lee Sin. And then secondly, he's playing against Spirit on Rengar, and we've already seen Westerners just have never faced like Korean Rengar. They don't know what that's about. Like, what did you think of this matchup here, Dominic?
I thought it was fine. Like, I didn't think he played it particularly bad or anything. He just, like, they had that thing where they're waiting behind the tower. He burned his flash level 2. And that just really hurts when you're playing the Lee Sin versus Rengar matchup because you want to be able to, like, play up into him and just, like, get deep wards and just harass him in his jungle and not have to worry about getting collapsed on. But once you lose your flash like that, it kind of gives the Rengar, like, free roam to, like, do whatever he wants and you can't really, like, pressure him at all. So I think that like Meteos played like a fine game. He almost had the game-winning play at the end, and like he has the mechanics to do everything he needs to do on Lee Sin. But yeah, I just think like the start kind of put him behind, and Lee Sin's just not the greatest champion from behind. Like into Kha'Zix, into Rengar, into Elise, like all those champions. As soon as you start getting behind, you're just like never gonna really get back ahead.
Okay, Mark, we're gonna have to return to my narrative. Thorin's analysis desk narrative. So Hai thought to himself, you know what? Elimination game. We'll let them have Yasuo, because that Dade guy is pretty good at it, but you know what? I've got the counter. I'm going to play Talon. What do you think of that matchup?
I don't know much about like the actual mid lane matchup itself. I think Talon can do fine against Yasuo in lane. I don't think that was really the problem. I think the Rengar ulted on Hai at like level 6, and he had the pink ward and everything. It was just really well thought out, really well planned. And from that moment on, I'm pretty sure they were just playing from behind. Hai was like out of the game essentially.
It's not even like he actually died one-on-one. He just couldn't avoid being ganked. Every time they wanted to gank him, they could get him even under tower, you know.
Mobile Boots Rengar is so scary, and Talon doesn't really have an escape if you bring a pink ward. Like, he can flash or something, but he just got bullet stunned and then comboed, and he just died. And there's not a lot you can do. You have to like expect that when you play against Rengar. You have to expect that he's coming for the person with no gap close or no escape. Like it's he should have seen it coming. He ended up dying a bunch of times. He actually saved the game a couple times too. Like he didn't do particularly bad, but he died too much, and he put his team too far behind with this play, I think.
Innerflame, whenever people talk about Talon, like solo queue type talk, they always say like he's not OP because if you get really far behind, like it's going to be a bad game for you. Okay, yeah, if he gets ahead, he's going to stomp everyone. In this game, like actually Mark said there, yeah, Hai was able to get some kills, some big ones in team fights as well. What can you actually do if you're behind on Talon in this sort of a matchup?
I mean, like the Rengar had Randuin's, right? And like he only had 3 items, and the Rengar was like pretty beefy. And you saw when he tried to like do something to this Rengar, like he couldn't do anything at all. The thing is with Hai, is like in Champ Select he was kind of baited onto the Talon because they know that he doesn't play like safe kind of mages, right? Like they banned the Rise, Cloud9 banned the Rise, so they couldn't pick the Rise against the Yasuo. Like Orianna wouldn't have worked with the comp just because it's not really a, you know, like jump in, go all in, and shockwave all together, right? Like it could have worked if you threw the ball in the right place and ulted, sure. But like even something like a Xerath, where he could have just sat back, cleared the waves, and actually like Xerath against Yasuo, the only spell which is blocked by the wind wall on Xerath is the E. The Q actually goes through the wind wall, so he could have actually played a safer pick, but like Samsung did their research a lot better, and they just forced him onto that assassin pick, and I just think that was, I'm not going to say it was over in Champ Select, but they were definitely at a disadvantage from Champ Select.
Okay, I think that's a good point, actually. I could believe they baited him into it, because if you remember, the game, the reason why I immediately kind of like my heart sank when the talent got locked in is I started just having flashbacks to that Najin White Sword game where they gave the same scenario. They gave Goong Zed, which is his best champion, and then they took Hai on Talon, and it was a pretty bad time if you were a C9 fan. Like, that was a depressing game. In general, in this series, Hai is going to be someone, obviously, where you have to look at him, because I always feel like Hai's like this, like, even when C9 wins against, not just against NA teams here, okay, obviously you can beat EG with different players, but if you play against an international team, if C9 wins, they usually do win by like, wow, great shot calling, like some great plays where they had a reaction that was excellent. Maybe Balls goes crazy, maybe Sneaky goes crazy, maybe Meteos has a good game, but it's almost never like, wow, they won and, you know, Hai was like 10, 2, and 7 on Zed or something. It's never, even when they win, it's not like that. So as a result, when they lose, that then becomes a factor that you have to look at, right? Okay, if the main thing Hai's bringing is the shot calling, which is clearly stellar, sometimes when the shot calling is not there, is he really up to par just as a mid laner alone, Dominate?
I think he is. He's just like a playmaker, and he's willing to die to make plays, and like a lot of that shot calling.
Okay,
like,
I can see why in your team you'd kind of favor that sort of style. Okay, I can see where you're coming from. Hey, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, I'm down for the playmaking mids for
Okay.
sure. So I just think that he's a playmaker, and like for example in game 2, like he knows backdooring's probably not gonna work there, but he's good at identifying like the only chance they have to win, and he'll just like press the issue and just like make them do something that he's gonna make them win the game instead of just like slowly lose the game. So I don't know. I think he's definitely a good mid laner, and I don't think that like his results this series indicate like how skilled he is or anything like that.
Okay, I mean he was versus arguably the best mid laner, like probably top 2 in most people.
But I mean,
so
he was like
true.
he was doing fine. Like game 1, I'd say landed him. Game 3, he was winning 2. Game 2, he just didn't play the matchup particularly well, and then game 4, I don't think that's like a great matchup for Talon unless Talon gets ahead. It's like really snowbally either way. So yeah, I don't think it was like a terrible showing. I think he's pretty good.
Okay, this will sound like a weird question here, Mark, because I'm gonna ask: was there any way for Cloud9 to win this game? And the obvious answer to that is, well, yeah, they might have been able to kill the Nexus or something. So it sounds really obvious, but actually, if you think about it, that was almost every single thing that could go right, like 4 things in a row for Cloud9. Like get the first pick, get the second pick, get the third pick, go all the way in the base, be killing the base. Maybe even get it, like literally if the support misses a bot, you know, like 7 things have to go right and you still lose the game. So if we rewind the tape back before the picks, what kind of position do you think C9 was actually in that game?
I would have guaranteed the loss if you asked me like right before they caught Yasuo there. I would have like I would have turned off the stream if I wasn't going to be on this show.
Okay. You're
I
like
wouldn't
one
have
of
even
those
seen the end
Miami
of the
Heat
game.
fans who would have just left the stadium like, oh, I got to get out for parking.
Yeah, that would have been me. I would have been at home
Okay.
already in my pajamas. Yeah, I didn't think they had any chance. I was just watching it, and I was like, maybe something miraculous will happen, and then something miraculous did happen, and I was super excited, and it just didn't end up working out, obviously. But I don't think they really stood a chance without Yasuo getting caught and then Twitch getting caught. Like, that's the only thing that could have won them the game, and it did happen.
So Innerflame, this is a point I want to get to because we're approaching the end of the series now. Is that when Dominate asked me why I thought like Blue would win, this is kind of what I'm getting at. A lot of things went Cloud9's way. They had good showings. They got some picks they wanted. They got actually the kind of game they wanted at certain times. And even when scenarios like this, where a lot of things went right, it wasn't like it was a terrible like it wasn't like the first 2 games for TSM where they couldn't even do anything they wanted. They really had chances here, but it felt like, how were they going to win? You know, were there favorable situations in this game that could have gone better their way? What do you think game 4 that decided it?
Okay, so well, obviously game 4, like we said, like the only reason why it was that close was because of that miraculous play at the end. Like there probably was no chance of coming back into it. But like even when they were attacking the Nexus and stuff, like Twitch using the spray and pray and then onto Lee Sin and then sneaky flashing into it, and then there were just like so many things which I don't know. They were just I think they were just too far ahead anyway. It would have taken something miraculous like that to win the game. And like the only reason that I said Cloud9 might win 3-2 in the first place is because they showed like a really good blue side throughout the tournament and like throughout the LCS split, right? And obviously Samsung Blue showed vulnerability in group stages. So like that was the only like logic I had saying that Cloud9 could potentially win it. And yeah, there were moments where they looked like it.
Okay, you ready for one of the patented Thorin theories that can either go really badly or moderately okay, and I pretend that they were really good. Okay, so here we go. I actually think that group stage was like the perfect warm-up for this series for Samsung Blue, because they played all these teams that go ham in the early game and always try to make plays and always try to gank and try to roam, all that shit. And so what you saw was in game 1, everything went terribly. Blue lost the game. After that, when I've watched a lot of the Blue best of 5s in Korea, they usually play way more passive than this. Like if they're down 1 or 2 kills, they're like, okay, play safe, just get to the mid game, like get to the late game, just don't die much deft, like just play safe, everyone. And then they wait to win the game at like 30 minutes or 25 minutes, or they find a vision control aspect where they can gradually get a bit back. And they don't make plays and ganks like this. It actually felt like from game 2 onwards, they were making a lot more plays. They were trying to do a lot more ganks. They were trying to like take over the jungle mode. What did anyone think on this topic? Have I gone too far with it?
I think it's just weaker opponents. Like against KTA, when you're playing against KTA's early game and you're down 2 kills, it's a lot different than playing against like LMQ's early game when you're down 2 kills. Like that team is way better at just like controlling vision as a team and just like restricting.
You mean
it.
KTA is better, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Just checking.
yeah. So like, I think just like when you're playing against like a top level aggressive Korean team, they just put more pressure and you just have less options than when you're playing against like an aggressive NA or like 2nd seed EU, 3rd seed NA team or OMG. Like I don't like they're more like wild. You have a lot more openings. It's like the same way like for example like for us when we played against Cloud9, we got stomped when they were ahead of like early game. But then when we play against LMQ and they're like ahead a couple kills early game, it doesn't really matter because like they're gonna do some things that are like fairly stupid, and we're just gonna like be able to like get into some profitable fights. So it just like really depends on who you're playing against.
What's actually before I forget it? Okay, someone mentioned this. I thought I'd just bring it up quickly. You know the game? It was game 2, the one where Hai was on Zed and he tried that like fucking reconnaissance mission where he like went up and placed the wall, then he hid, then he went past. I actually think in that game it might not have been the minion that spotted him, because that's actually one of the rare cases, right? In League of Legends, I usually don't mind that much that there's not booths, okay? Because actually the thing is, in League of Legends, usually there's not that much information unless it's literally a TSM fan like, Dyrus, a guy is coming to the left. Like, unless they do that, there's not really that much the crowd can give away, okay? The problem in StarCraft, famously is if someone's trying a cheese, and then usually it's a game like a matchup where in the first 10 minutes you don't do anything, and you hear the crowd like ooh, then you know someone must be like right outside your base coming in. So that's actually what I think might have happened here, because the crowd did just start going ham when like all of C9 was on their side of the map, and then Samsung Blue's like, well, what could they be going crazy about? I mean, there's one lane we haven't checked that's like sort of pushing up. Like, does anyone else buy into this? What do you think?
They saw him. They showed the replay where they saw him on it,
okay.
but I didn't like the just like the crowd noise, because even though you don't know what's happening, when you hear that as a player from the crowd, you
Must
know
be something
something's
right.
happening. Yeah,
Especially because
just,
people
like,
are
start
laughing as well.
Yeah, you
So
start
like,
filtering
what could it be?
information. Like if it's level 1 and you hear the crowd yelling, it's like, oh, people are about to kill me. Like you know what's gonna like fucking happen. Like in this situation, it's like what could possibly be going on? Like Baron's not up. Like we have an exposed inhibitor. It's like doesn't take like a rocket scientist to like figure out like what the possibilities are in this situation. So I'm sure that they have like an idea that like something was happening. Maybe they thought a couple people were cheating. Maybe they thought Rumble was gonna teleport into the base, or Maokai was gonna teleport into the base with Zed or something. But yeah, they just knew that there was gonna be like something happening, which is just like kind of annoying as a viewer, because it just like the game's not completely.
Okay, Dominate,
like,
you've
legit.
played against Cloud9 a shit ton of times now. You even actually played them in the amateur scene before they became top team, so you've seen like the progression of this team. Usually, people talk about shot calling, right, as though it's like working out in the gym. Like, oh, I've got to get my shot calling up. You know, if I just work on it a bit more, yeah, if I work on that, I'll get really good at it. But actually, it seems like C9 were just like this good at shot calling from really early on in that 5-man lineup. So what is it actually like to play against them? Because even some of these top teams, these Korean teams, we saw that even if the Korean teams actually, some of them are as good at shot calling, but it's like the thing about Cloud9 is it seems like their reaction time to do something is super fast. It's like they just know, like, do it now, like go to that tower now. Like, what's it like to play against them in that sense?
Yeah, they just feel really smart. Like they feel like they always just know what to do, no matter what the situation is. So you just always have to kind of play. You have to take everything into account when you play Cloud9. If you make one mistake, they'll exploit it. They'll like we've had so many games like in scrims where we're winning the entire game. We get Baron, and then they randomly just like push mid, and we end up in like some situation where it's a base race, and they end up winning. And they're just so good at like choosing their best opportunity to win and just acting on it, which is kind of like what happened in game 4, where they got the 3 kills mid, and they just instantly are going for Nexus. Like that was their only chance to win, is like insecking Dada into the team, getting a couple kills, and then going for the Nexus. So yeah, that's just one of the good qualities about their team. And I think it's the fact that Hai is like the definite leader. So if he says something, it goes. Like they'll all just commit to it blindly, which is, yeah, it's respectable. And I think it's like probably the best way to have like a team. Just have like a captain. His word goes.
Innerflame, what did you think of C9's shot calling? Because to me, that's like the best thing that anyone in the West has at the moment. Okay, Alliance has some really sick players. If they're the right champion, they can do really well. Bjergsen obviously sometimes can have amazing games. You have these players dotted around and teams who have a strength, but that's like the one strength I can think of in the West where it feels like C9's shot calling could be as good as any team's shot calling in the world. What do you think on this topic?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it comes down to like good decision making by Hai, since he's like the standout leader. But like Dominate said, if the team don't act around him, and in a lot of teams, especially in Europe, there's a problem where like not all the players, I'm not going to say have the respect for the player, but they don't always have faith in the cause of the player, right? So some might hesitate in these moments, and like based on this, it will probably like turn out in a bad way. So I honestly think, yeah, you can have good calls, but like one person isn't going to make good calls all the time. So it's more about your team acting with you.
Okay. Mark, what did you think overall of Cloud9 at this tournament? Like, do you buy the hype of like, okay, I'm gonna broaden this out to everyone after this, but I want to go with you first. Do you buy the storyline that like, oh, they were just so unlucky to get on this side of the bracket? And, you know, they did definitely beat everyone on the bottom side of the bracket. They'd been in the semifinals, the final now. Do you buy that?
No, I don't buy that. I think they got to where I think about they deserve to be, or like where they would have ended up in any of the group. Like I think they were going to make it out of any group unless they drafted like 2 Korean teams or something.
Okay.
I don't think if they played any of the Korean teams, I suspect they would have lost. They might have like maybe beat a Chinese team, but some of the Chinese solo laners are so good that like I don't know if I could lane against them. Like Like those games are sort of more of a toss-up, and it's, I don't know. I don't think they would have done any better in any other group.
Let me open that same question up. Dominate. I get the sense that there must be at least one or two teams in the lower half that you think like maybe they could have beaten or they would have beaten, right?
Yeah, I think they would have done well against OMG if they played OMG. If they ended up getting first in their group, like winning that tiebreaker against Shield and playing OMG, I think they had potential to beat OMG. Or actually, I think any of the Chinese teams they could have beat. Like EDG didn't look particularly good in the group stage. I mean, they lost the game to AHQ. Starhorn, I'd say probably looked a little bit better than EDG in the group stage, but they still had vulnerabilities. So I think that Cloud9 style would be pretty good against a Chinese team, generally speaking. So I think that they could have potentially made semis if they played against a Chinese team in quarters.
Innerflame. Would Cloud9 have beaten any of these other teams in the round of 8?
Well, everyone knows like the strength of China is generally in the bot lane, and I think Cloud9's bot lane is good enough to not get too far behind to a Chinese bot lane. So I think they generally do like really well. I think
Even
Lamination's
Starhorn
really,
Royal
really
Club?
good. Well, I mean, Uzi's like so aggressive, so it's hard to say when a player's that aggressive. It can go both ways, and most of the time he's so mechanically good that it kind of works out. But Lamination's really, really good. Like I think he's definitely like top 2 NA supports.
Okay, in general, before we go on to some more blue stuff, because I noticed, like, unfortunately, because everyone cares about the Western team, like, all the focus, it seems like people are giving, not on this show, I mean, in general, people talking about it, is like, what a great job by Cloud9 and so good, and isn't the West, like, there wasn't that much talk about blue, so we'll talk about C9 first and then go on to blue to wrap it up. In general, what can you actually take away from this series if you're C9, Mark? Like, what were the good factors there? Does this actually, like, okay, here's something I would have said about C9 before this Worlds. Actually, I think in general they've been a bit lackluster internationally. Like, they usually have one game in a series where they do well, but in the others they get stomped, and then it's people just clinging to the one game, you know. Were there things you could really take away? Like, I can see a progression of Cloud9 from the past.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great things that Cloud9 did this tournament. I think they picked really well. I think they outpicked Blue in almost every game, despite losing. They're just really great pickers. Their laners did all really well. Sneaky showed up, Balls showed up. Meteos can jungle against anyone in the world. Like, they have all these like great players, great strategies, great shot calling. Like, they have all the tools they need to really take games, and they just seem to fall just a tiny bit short in like team fighting. I hate saying it, but they just seem to get a little bit outplayed, like barely, in some of these fights against some of the best teams in the world. And that might have something to do with the way solo queue is here versus there or something, but it seems like all these Asian teams are getting really good at team fighting, and the Western teams are actually looking like they're kind of out-rotating them a little bit. Like, it's almost like their positional play is a little bit better, and they need to work on their team fighting a little bit, and vice versa.
Dominate. This might sound like a quite loaded question where I'm like stood out in the Thorin minefield and I'm like, come on out, Dominate. It's safe out here. Don't worry, no one's going to get mad at you. So I actually thought, even though TSM won NALCS, that C9 overall was the better team. As in, not in that one match, obviously, but like, I think they're the best NA team. I think they would win against most other teams. I think they would win if you played that match 10 times or whatever, you know. So for me, I thought C9 were the best NA team anyway. After seeing the 2 round of 8s and the 2 Worlds overall, was C9 better than TSM overall at Worlds?
I mean, it's really hard to say because I don't really know how good White is compared to Blue. Like, I definitely think Blue is weaker and White stronger, but I don't know like to what degree. So I'd say that they're like really evenly matched teams. I wouldn't say that one of them's better than the other by far. I think that TSM has slightly better laning for the most part, and then Cloud9 has better rotations and team play. So I guess Cloud9 would match up better against foreign teams because they have like a defined strength advantage over other teams. But yeah, I think both teams are really good. I think both teams could take series internationally. So yeah, I definitely think just like NA is improving in general. So yep.
Innerflame, who do you think is the best NA team based on this tournament?
Cloud9.
Is it convincing? What
Yeah,
were your reasons?
they just play smarter than the other teams, and yeah, like better team play is always better than than good individual play.
Okay, just leave it at that.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
fair
it.
enough.
Yeah, there's nothing more to say on that.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a good axiom. Okay, I've got one last question for everyone then. The big benefit for Cloud9 and the big weakness they have is that they just sort of have, it seems like they've decided, right, you know, this is the lineup. Like, if this guy's playing bad for 2 months, we'll have to find a way around that, still win, and then hope he comes back. You know, we're going to have these 5 players, and we're just going to stick with them, and then we're going to have good results, and we're going to have bad results, and we just have to navigate between those, okay? They're not a team that's going to be like, okay, this guy's not playing so well, like, let's see who we can, like, they never, I don't imagine they ever use the phrase, like, let's upgrade at that position. But when you see this result here, okay, even the most probably generous critic of Cloud9 would probably say, okay, maybe if they were on a different side of the bracket, maybe they could have gone to semis. I don't think anyone's saying they would have gone to the final, or I don't think anyone thinks they would have won. If they keep this 5-man lineup for another year and they come to Worlds Season 5, I want to ask each person here, could Cloud9 actually win the tournament? Like, do you think a roster change is necessary to win the tournament? Not to be a good team, not to be awesome, all these things we've described. Innerflame, could they win Season 5 Worlds with this 5-man lineup?
No. Not currently, like definitely not currently. They'd have to grow as players, but then again, they've been playing together forever, right? And yeah, they've improved, but I don't know how much more they can improve. I feel like high is peaking.
Okay. Mark, what do you think? What's your sense for this?
I don't think they can win Worlds next season with those 5. I think I don't think that's necessarily their goal. I don't think they care about being first place at Worlds. I mean, they will make it to Worlds next season. I'm pretty confident with those 5 people. They're going to be in the top 3 in NA. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to beat top Korean teams with those 5. I mean, they'll still be like competitive. They'll still, be able to take a game off Blue next season, I think. But I don't think they're going to win a best of 5.
Okay, Dominate, when I ask you this, I'll shift it a little bit for you. When Mark said there he doesn't think their goal is to win Worlds, like I'll just expand that a little bit, okay? Obviously they want to win Worlds. That is on like their checklist, like win NA, win Worlds. It's all what they want to do. But the point is, the sort of team that's going to win Worlds, if it's a Western team, has to be the team where like all that it says on the blackboard is like win Worlds at all costs, no excuses. That is all, do anything possible, which means change players. I don't know, do like a 2-month boot camp. I don't know what you'd have to do, but you'd have to do something drastic, obviously, to be a Western team and win Worlds. I know from a player's perspective, it's like usually not that helpful to be thinking to yourself like, well, should we replace this player, etc. Because like if you have a good team, you think to yourself, no, like we could improve, or like I believe in my teammates and all that sort of thing. Just from knowing Cloud9, I mean, am I right in thinking that there's probably no chance they would change players?
Yeah, they wouldn't change players like right now. There would need to be like some defining reason, like something would have to happen inside the team where they felt like one of the players needed to go. But yeah, I mean, I don't think any NA team or E team would win Worlds without like roster changes right now. So it's like I don't think that like that really matters that much. It's just like I think that they could improve. I think they could potentially make semis or make finals like with the lineup, like depending on like brackets and like how much they improve in like the certain meta that's being played at Worlds, and if they're good at those champions. Like this time I actually thought it was a pretty favorable meta for them, but I'd have to see like what they're playing and like what champions come out and everything. But yeah, I think that they would rather take the same lineup and try to get close to winning Worlds with that lineup than like potentially change a player and just have a disaster happen and be like 4th or 5th in NA for like a split.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't, like they won't win Worlds with that lineup, but they'll probably do well. They'll probably improve. So yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Blue then, because here's the weird thing about Blue. I'd even say it's probably true that Blue have made it to the semi-finals with like a weaker performance than most people who watch OGN thought they'd have, and some of their players, like actually Deft has had a few games where he was just okay, and they've still got to the semi-finals anyway. Is Blue, as usual, going to beat White, Dominate? Do you think Blue will beat White? I can't remember what you said on the show, but who do you think is going to win that matchup?
I didn't predict that match on the show, but I think White will win this time. I just think White are just outclassing them right now. Yeah, like I don't see any player on blue that's like stand out better than like there was a time where I guess like Dade was playing better than Pond, but it doesn't look like that
Sure.
right now. Like Deft, I think Im's playing better than Deft pretty clearly. I think Mata's playing better than Hart pretty clearly. Yeah, I just don't think that they have any like natural advantages. So unless like White's mentality is just like crushed against blue and they just feel like they can't beat blue, I don't see why they wouldn't win because they look like the better team pretty decisively, I'd say.
Mark, are you riding on the White train all the way to Championship Central?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a team that can play with them. From what I've seen so far of this tournament, they're just the best team. Blue and White Shield look sort of like on par. Like they're both very good teams, like definite second and third best teams in the tournament. But I think White's just going to take it.
Okay, Innerflame, you know, team play, the collective can overcome the individual. We got this, right? Blue's going to do this. You come on. You're in their corner, right?
All right, I will. I mean, you can say based on previous experience, like Dominate said, it will be like the mindset. But there is a certain point where the individual play is so much higher that it kind of makes my point irrelevant.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think like Dominate said, so many of the players are on a different level to the others, and that's probably why White will win the tournament.
Okay, so everyone's got White winning here. Okay, interesting. Let's just do like a really quick rundown of the other two matchups then. So tomorrow we've got the all Chinese affair, which probably means like a nice like lie in bed for most viewers, you know, maybe get up for the fourth game the day after that, you know. So as EDG will play Starhorn Royal Club. Actually an interesting matchup in terms of how the groups went. Dominate, who do you think wins this matchup?
Like based on how LPL went, I think EDG is gonna win just because they were like always beating Starhorn Royal Club there. And from what I've seen, like last year, even though OMG looked like a stronger team than Royal Club last year, like Royal Club still ended up winning that matchup. So I think that will kind of carry over, and EDG will end up beating Starhorn Royal Club. But Starhorn Royal Club, I think, looked better than them to this point, so it's pretty tough to call.
Mark, who's gonna win out of the all Chinese blockbuster?
EDG, I think. I think Name didn't. He looked bad in the tournament so far, but I think he's shaken it off by now. He's got his head in the game, and I think he's just going to show up, and it's going to be like 3-2 or 3-1 EDG. I'm pretty sure.
Innerflame, are you joining the other group? Are you going to be on your own on this one?
No, I will join them, but like based on the fact when a player like Name, who had so much hype, and you've seen he can play at like a super good level, when he does have a bad performance and they do just about make it through, then like he's going to be more hungry to show that he deserves the hype. And I really think Name will perform, and that's why I think EDG will win.
Okay. See, so far everyone has the same predictions I do, so it's nothing to even argue with. Okay, let's go to the last one then. Let's see on this one. Okay, so I'll just as a caveat say that we don't know if there is going to be any shenanigans where they like change fucking support player like 1 minute into the champs. Like who was that guy? Like when Ozone turned up with that Looper guy. And I think one of the teams in that group last year even said like they didn't even know who Looper was and they were just in champs like, hey, what the who is that guy? Like, but apparently you can do that.
Was.
Yeah.
Who knew?
So if assuming Cloud doesn't turn up and they play with this Dada guy who is like the whipping boy of every like fan apparently in this tournament and everyone's just kicking his head in. So if OMG plays with Dada 77 against Naji and White Shield, who wins the series, Dominate?
I think Shield. I think Shield wins like regardless of who they play with. I just think that they're just like a stronger team, and even though they didn't look that good in groups, I mean OMG looked even worse in groups. So
I have to get an update actually because Dominate, weren't you one of the people who picked Shield to win the tournament when we did
yeah,
our
that was
our
before.
Worlds?
That was
Do
like.
you still believe in that?
Nah, that was my one prediction I got wrong on the thing.
Okay.
I'm already call it wrong. I
I just wanted to give you a chance now, you know, as like an update. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, wait, when are you supposed to call me Lord, man? I went 8 of 8. Like, come on.
I'll have to go back and review the tapes. You know, I don't like to give out lords when they're not legitimate. So we'll figure it out there. We'll tally the debts up. So
Okay.
Mark, who is going to win out of Naji and White Shield and OMG?
White Shield, 3-0
Just-
probably.
Convincing? They're not even going to win a game, OMG?
Nah. And it doesn't matter which support shows up. I don't think.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
The
I'm
rocks,
gonna
the
have
rocks
to. I'm
analysis
gonna
there.
agree with that. Yeah, I will agree with that as well. Like when the team is stronger in every single role, there's probably no chance that the other team's gonna win. Like not even one game. It's gonna be 3-0.
Are you implying that Naj and White Shield is stronger in every single role than OMG?
Maybe not. Yeah, no. OMG, yeah.
You
I am.
think that Watch is better than Loveling?
So far,
I
yeah.
think that yeah, I think so far this tournament he definitely has been.
Okay. And it's that clear cut that Goon is better than Cool?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
Goon's good.
Cool is known to have like a limited champ pool, right? So
Okay. Interesting to hear where people are on that one. Okay, does anyone have any final thoughts? Innerflame, you want some final thoughts before we leave?
no, I think I've said everything I need to say.
Oh, okay, very stoic ending to the show there. Mark, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah. I just want to clarify one thing. When I commented on saying the Cloud9 can't or won't win Worlds next season with their current roster, that has less to do with Cloud9 than it does to do with the infrastructure of esports in North America. Like, I don't think any North American team can win next season. Maybe a few seasons from now, if things go well, like North America will be a contender, but not next season.
Yeah, okay. Dominate, any final words?
No, I agree with everything Mark just said there.
Shoutouts to Energems, all those people.
Yeah. Wait, I'm not supposed to do sponsor shoutouts on your show.
My bad. Well, thanks to them anyway for helping Dominate stay up and watch all the games. And cop
Energem and Quest, man.
become Caitlyn. So anyway, end of the show. It's over. Go to YouTube, all that shit. You can see it all on the screen there. Goodbye, everyone.